Hello, guys, and welcome back to the WildTalk podcast with me, Dan, and Corey. You all right, mate? How's things?
Yeah, do you know what, right? For the eighth week in a row, you just sounded too miserable. Can you do that again, but a bit more optimistic?
I sounded too miserable. I
Yeah.
put a great deal of effort into not sounding miserable then.
Try again, but with a big smile on your face.
I had a big smile on my face.
I don't believe that for a second.
Oh, come on. I have got a big smile on my face.
Go on, go on, do it again. We're not going to cut it out. I just want people to hear that you can do it.
I can do it.
We're not going to cut it out, but I just want people to hear that you can be happy.
Okay, let me just build myself up. I am happy. I'm happy all the time.
Start slapping yourself in the head.
Yeah. Just slapping myself. Yeah, giving my head a shake. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh no, because now you put me on the spot, and now I'm going to be really self-conscious. Go on, you do it.
Right. Okay. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the WildTalk podcast with myself, Corey, and our co-host Dan.
That sounded so forced, but yeah, I'm all right, mate. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm shattered, to be fair.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah, I fell asleep on the sofa watching the football last night. It was such a boring game.
Chelsea Liverpool. Who was it?
Chelsea Liverpool.
Liverpool. Yeah, it was boring.
Like the fifth time in a row, it finished 0-0. And I fell asleep watching that, and I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning on the sofa. I thought, well, it's too late for me to go to bed now. I'll wake Susie up and probably the kids.
Oh yeah. I was at the pub watching the Leeds Nottingham Forest game.
How did that finish? I didn't actually.
It finished 2-1 to Leeds.
I was going to say Leeds won that, didn't they?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Oh, do you know what it is this week in rugby? Ravels round. Got the Hull derby on Friday. Hull KR versus Hull FC, the biggest derby in rugby league. Arguably the biggest derby in the sporting world. Bigger than the Manchester derby or the Liverpool Everton derby, the Merseyside derby. It's huge.
Sounds it. Don't really do rugby.
And I'm fucking working.
Oh, that's a shame, mate. You have to watch it on highlights or something.
Yeah, obviously, again, people listening to this, this is Good Friday weekend coming up too.
It is. I was about to say that Leeds are 13th in the table, but by the time this comes out,
they'll be relegated.
May well be relegated. So there's no point me trying to blow smoke up
and Newcastle and Villa tonight, is it? Newcastle and West Ham tonight. That'll be a good game.
Yeah.
Did you
watch? We've got Crystal Palace next, and that'll be an easy win.
I don't know. These Crystal Palace are on form.
No. We're all right. We're all right. Yeah. I'm not worried. I've just then said quite publicly that it'll be an easy win, so I will expect lots of comments when
I drafted
when we finally lose.
Melia, is that how we pronounce it? Goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Drafted him into my FIFA Ultimate team earlier on.
Nice.
Got one of his special cards. Thought I'd give him a go, and he doesn't do too bad. He's now back on the bench. I put Edison out instead.
Cool.
But,
I don't play FIFA.
You what? Sorry,
I don't play FIFA. I haven't played FIFA since FIFA 13.
I play it too much, far too much. I went out with the camera this morning, doing a bit more macro again. Just trying to improve my technique and whatnot.
You're loving it at the moment.
I absolutely love it.
The photos are great. The photos are great, mate. To be quite honest,
I'm proper happy. And looking at how literally they were a week ago to today,
it's annoying because you went and bought that. Is it the Raynox 250?
I didn't buy it. A friend has sent me it
because I have one here knocking around that I don't use anymore.
So my friend has sent me it for me to then give it back to them. It's because it was like a testing period, like they just before I bought it. But if you've got one that you're not using, you can send it my way if you'd like.
Yeah. I'll dig it out. I don't know where it is. It's in a cupboard somewhere, but I've definitely got one.
Well, I asked my missus for one for my birthday, but it'll save me 90 quid.
Yeah, well, you can. I'm not giving it to you for free.
I'll give you a blowjob.
No, it's not worth that. Okay.
Is it not?
No.
2.
Nah.
A rusty trombone.
You're quite right. I'll take about 35 quid.
Oh, bloody hell. Right, that's us done for the night then.
I was just going to say, do you remember when we started this podcast and it was we had our planning call, I think it was the day before the first episode, and we were like, so how are we going to be? Oh, we're going to be nice and PC. We're going to, please everybody. Yeah. Now it's, Series
rusty
2,
trombones.
It's just gone down.
Yeah, but there's no point. There's no point.
We're
not like that. I am one of the most vulgar potty mouth people ever. So to get through the podcast with only swearing a handful of times is nothing short but a mirror. I can't even do that at my son's nursery. We,
it's a miracle if you don't swear
funny
in an episode.
story. We went to a stay and play at my son's nursery because they're weird. They like to get the parents involved. The most awkward things. I went to one. I've not been back since. Susie tells me there's one. And I'm like, nah, you can go. I don't want to go. I was in there and I don't even remember doing it, but apparently I swore very loudly and the full room fell quiet of parents and staff and kids as well. And they all just looked at me and I'm like, what? And the teacher was like, you can't use that language in here. I was like, did I even swear?
You got told off by the teacher.
Well, sorry, they're not a teacher. They're nursery.
Yeah.
They've got a bloody BTEC. They're not a teacher. Yeah, I got
BTEC in what is it called? Health and social care.
Yeah. And the thing is, right, 2 days later, I got to pick Teddy up, and the same woman sat outside having a fag. I'm thinking, you've told me off, but you sat outside having a fag while looking after kids.
Double standards, mate. Sorry, if you hear some rustling, I'm just getting some chocolates out because I'm a bit hungry.
I'm not. I had a big Chinese last night, and it's left me. I had a bacon sarnie. Me and Susie went to the park, and obviously opposite where I live, there's a huge park, and there's a cafe in the middle of it. So obviously we went around with the cameras and stuff and did some nice photos and that, and I went for a bacon sandwich, and I've just been bloated since.
That's you and your problem. Sorry, I'm talking with a mouthful of chocolate.
But that's absolutely disgusting.
I'm really sorry, but
grot.
I'm really hungry, you know.
I tell my 6-year-old son off for that.
Yeah, but he doesn't do a podcast listened to by millions of people.
No, but he sits there and bloody yams with his mouth full, and I can't be dealing with it. Cannot be dealing with it. It's sketty.
That was a really nice fudge chocolate, was that? Just to let you know.
I'm not jealous in the slightest. I haven't had chocolate for about 2 months.
That's a long time, is that?
Yeah. I had a bar of vegan chocolate a couple of weeks ago. You what? Sorry.
Someone's been at my chocolate because they disappeared.
Be your mum.
No, be me dad.
Your dad who?
He's a menace for that.
What's your dad called?
Big Rick.
Big Rick.
Yeah.
Rick.
Yeah.
Rick Knight. How do you want me to go sort him out?
Nah.
Keep him away from Dan's chocolates.
Yeah.
What's your mum called?
Sue.
Sue?
Sue.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, well, you weren't expecting that, were you?
No. Because obviously my partner, she's called Susie, and Sue. And her nana is called Suzanne, but Sue for short. My nana's called Sue. So every time I meet her, I'm just like, Sue. Send him a photo of Ronaldo. Was that your reference with Ronaldo?
Oh, of course it was, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Sue and Rick.
Yeah.
That's some nice names, that.
I've
got too many parents to remember.
Oh, that sounds tragic.
My mum's called Kim. Stepdad's called Kev.
Kim and Kev?
My dad's called Dave, and his girlfriend's called Dawn. How weird is that? Dave and Dawn, Kim and Kev.
That's quite funny.
Weird, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a bit weird.
Just before we move on to the actual important part of the podcast, which is the topic and stuff like that, which I'll explain in a minute before we get the guest on. My ex-girlfriend of many years ago, her parents' names were the exact same as my parents' names. It took me about 8 months to realise that.
That's strange.
Thought it was real weird. Like my biological parents, not my step-parents and stuff. Yeah, I just thought it was real weird.
Yeah. That's how weird.
Oh, I can't remember what I was going to move on to. No, that was it, yeah. Just before we get started. Just before we get started and introduce our guest, our fundraiser is, again, slowly coming up. So we've had to move it back a little bit more. And it'll be almost in time. We'll get it done just before I get married.
Yes, we will, won't we?
Yes, I'm gonna have my wedding probably in a wheelchair because I'll be knackered after climbing 24 miles. I reckon you'll smash it, mate. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I did another 8-mile walk yesterday, and I was a bit tired when I got home, and my leg was a bit stiff because obviously I've got a knackered muscle, but I was all right compared to the last time I did it, and I slept for about 16 hours afterwards.
Jesus. Yeah, you'll sleep after this. There's no doubt about it.
But speaking of weddings.
Yes.
Speaking of weddings, sorry, I kind of took that one away from you because I know we pre-discussed this before, and you wanted to. Yeah,
we actually just to let the listeners know, we do actually plan a little bit of these episodes.
It never goes to plan. One of us always ends up doing it instead. Oh
yeah. Yes, we do some planning. We do think in advance slightly.
Do you ever scroll through Facebook and see a couple and just think, when are you two just going to get married? Because you're so cutesy with each other, you're so fluffy, it's so romantic, and it's absolutely beautiful. And you think the day's got to be coming soon, or if not, at least a kid along the way.
Oh, 100%. There's loads of these couples that you see.
And do you know what? It makes me a bit sick, but it also makes me smile to see that there is some of that love in the world, because I certainly don't have that with my partner.
Yeah, it's nice. It is
Me and
nice.
my partner have that relationship where she walked by and I just belted her ass, and she called me some awful names and made me cry.
Oh,
I asked her for a cup of tea and she tells me to go fuck herself.
fuck herself.
No, myself.
You said herself, though.
Yeah. But it's nice to see a really, really strong, cute relationship.
It is.
That leads on to our guest.
It does. It segues beautifully.
Specifically, them and their partner have such a fantastic relationship. They're with each other all the time. It's so beautiful to see. Everyone's really jealous, and we're just all waiting for the day that the wedding's announced, which can't wait to be a part of. So without much more fuss, I'd like to introduce our guest for today, Mr. Mike Phelps. Hello, Mike.
Hello, how are you?
I'm all right. So when is the wedding?
Are you joking?
No.
So I got married in 2002.
No, is it Sam, your wife? Sammy?
Oh, you're on about my photography wife.
Yes,
obviously.
Mr. Chris Lowe.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's developing into just, an absolutely beautiful relationship, isn't it?
Cold, dark nights in your hide and stuff like that. Some stuff has got to be, you can't rely on your body to keep you warm. You've got to rely on each other.
Hey, that's it's all about survival, isn't it? And when you get
all about survival and pleasure,
what we got to do. I don't mind doing the spooning with him. It's just when he asks me for a reach round, I get a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, the first time you probably got a bit uncomfortable, but I bet by now it's part of the routine, isn't it?
Just used to it now. It's just like a scene out of Brokeback Mountain. No.
But all jokes aside, you do have a very, very good relationship with each other, which is very, very positive to see, because you don't get many of them anymore.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Chris Lowe, who we're talking about, is an absolutely phenomenal photographer. We've had a really good relationship. We've known each other for years, if I'm honest with you. We both kept reptiles and we knew each other in the reptile world, and then got into photography, sort of like, wildlife photography at pretty much exactly the same time. And
you've both not, well, you yourself, you haven't been doing wildlife photography to the standard that you're doing for no. I would say for your age anyway. Sorry, this is not to say that you're old, we'll just remind everybody that Mike's a year older than my dad.
Yeah, so just going back to that, we was out for a day photographing short-eared owls a couple of years
3 years ago, was it?
Yeah, it might be 3 years ago now.
Maybe a little bit longer than that, actually, because I was at my old house. It was over 3 years ago.
And Corey reminded me on the way back home that I was a year older than his dad, which made me feel really old.
If it makes you feel better, my dad did have me quite young. So.
Yeah, I know, but still. But yes, going back to what you said earlier, I did a bit of photography I've got some lovely photos of my daughter when she was about 3 years old that I took with an old DSLR, an old Nikon camera back in the day. Really enjoyed it, but really didn't follow it through. Always had a passion for wildlife photography. For wildlife. Used to go out with binoculars from about the age of 5, really. My uncle lived right next door to RSPB, local to us, and I used to go over there with him. And then he took me to see the peregrine falcons nesting in Simmons Yacht on Ross and Wye. About 1982, that was. I was 5 years old.
I wasn't even a twinkle in my dad's eye then.
Yeah, absolutely. and if I'm honest with you, that was quite a defining moment for me. It was seeing a peregrine flew in and landed on the wall on the viewing platform and then took off. It was only there for a few seconds and then took off and went hunting. And at 5 years old, it just took my breath away. And that was
surreal to see.
That was the point where I just fell in love with wildlife. And I've had that love and passion for wildlife, since that day up until I'm 46 now, and it's never gone away.
It's good. It's good to keep it that long. I mean, obviously, I know some wildlife photographers that are into the 60s, 70s, and they've been doing it since they were 15 continuously. And I mean, I have no issue saying this publicly. I think comparing your photography to people that have been doing it for 40 years full time, I mean, the level of work that you pull out is just absolutely unreal. You are, I mean, me and Dan we've spoke about this. You're probably one of the best wildlife photographers I know personally. I'm sure Dan will agree with me on that.
100% agree.
Wow.
It's absolutely unreal, and you can see the dedication, the work that you put into what you do, and the time and the effort, especially given the hide that you're doing at the minute, the time that you put into that, the trips that you do.
And that's it, isn't it? It is just, we love it so much, myself and Chris. We're thinking about it constantly, researching of locations and what we can do at the hide. It is a massive passion for us. And I think because of that, and not taking it away from anybody else that doesn't do it, but it's over a short period of time, we've put in a hell of a lot of hours, which I suppose has helped us develop as photographers.
100%. Time is money, they'd normally say, but I think in your case, time is what's a word? Quality. Time is quality. We'll go with quality, yeah. Because not taking anything away from previous work, but I had a flick through your Instagram earlier on, which I've done on a few occasions, and kind of looked at your wildlife photography from maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and you can see the difference in quality. I mean, the images that you were doing back then were still fantastic, but especially within the last 2 years or so, your wildlife photography is just, I mean, it blows me away every time I see one of your photos. It's just, I always think, I wonder what he's going to pull out next. Will it top it? And then you'll do something, and I think, like, how did you manage to beat that? It's you can definitely see the time that you put into it, which is good to see, because, like I say, a lot of people, they don't get the images that they want, and they can get easily very much put off it and stop putting the time and effort in.
But you going back to like 3 or 4 years ago, I only started taking photos of wildlife in 2018, so we're only sort of like
5 years into it.
Yeah, into it. So I've still got a shed load to learn, and I always want to learn. But yeah, I look back at some of them photos now, and I remember being blown away at the time, thinking, "Oh my God, I can't believe I've taken that photo." And now I think, "Oh gosh, if I'd have done this and I'd have done that, it'd have been a much better image." But yeah,
you get rid of that learning curve though, which I suppose it's a good thing. I love looking back at my old images and see how far I've come along. I'm by no means fantastic wildlife photographer, but I mean, I was saying to Dan before you jumped in, obviously I've been doing macro and looking at images that I produced a week ago to today in such a small time frame. Like, I buzz off that, because I can see the quality difference in just a week, and I think, well, if I've just done that in a week, imagine what it's going to be like in a year's time if I progress like that.
I've noticed that though, Corey. I think you've hit your niche there, because and I've said this to you. You know me, I'm always open and honest, and I said probably the best bit of kit that you could buy is actually a driving license and a car, because with the long lens, you need to put them, not all the time, you can get some lovely images, but you've got to travel the distances. Dan, knows that. He's driving up and down the country all the time. Macro is totally different. You can have amazing experience in your own back garden, like literally on your front your drive of your house, little jumping spiders and things like that. Macro photography for me opens up a massive new world, and it's quite exciting. It's a little bit different as well, Corey. You're starting to stack your images now, and you'll learn different tricks of how to sort of like edit them better and get them cleaner. And it's amazing type of photography. I love it. I don't do loads of it, but I do really enjoy it. But I can honestly say, me and Chris are saying, God, Corey's, you can see you developing so quickly. But it's because you can jump in your garden and just get the shots all the time.
That's it. 90% of the shots that I've put up have been in my back garden, or at the park at the top of my street. Like, I've had to walk. Like, obviously, it's never going to come away from the fact that I use my big lenses and going to see, like, when I photographed the eagles up in Scotland. That's what I love doing. But because I don't drive, because I don't have that freedom just to go out and do it, it's helped me develop this love for macro photography. And I mean, in 2 months' time, that's all going to change. I've got my driving test in June. Thank God I had it last year, but I'm not going to go into too much detail on that, because I don't like to talk about failure. But
that'll be a game changer, that will, mate. Honestly, just being able to have that being able to drive wherever you want, whenever you want, without relying on anyone is a big game changer.
Do you know what? I'm not even looking for. Obviously, I'm looking forward to it because of the fact that I can get out. But the main thing is for me is I'm sick of my kids telling me they're bored, and I'm like, oh, what do we do? Well, there's only so many times we can go to the deep or somewhere like that in Hull. So it's going to be good to travel with them. And obviously, you'll know having kids and stuff as well. The more I can travel with my kids, the more I can kind of not force, but I can kind of get them into the same love and stuff that I have.
What the key is, and I haven't been able to do it, you need to get your partner into photography.
Wildlife she is. So up until when I moved across to Sony, I had 3 Nikon bodies. I had a D850, a D800, and a D750, and Susie had the 750. We went out, and she absolutely loved it. And when I went across the Surney, I had to give up them extra bodies. But no, she absolutely loves it, and she's happy to. She was out with me earlier on. She weren't photographing, but she was my little bug finder and stuff like that, which was good. Dan, does Jenny like photography or? Apart from TikTok, obviously we're not including TikTok.
Yeah, we don't include TikTok. Yeah and no. I keep saying to her that we might get you a little camera so you can just snap when we're out and about. But it's like what you said with Susie. She'll just pop along and we'll go walking up the mountains and stuff, and she's quite happy doing that, I think.
Yeah. What about
she might tell you otherwise, that she's absolutely not happy doing that, but
I won't believe her. I believe you, Dan, my little sugar bear. I always believe you.
Thank you. Love you.
What about your wife, Mike? Is it your wife? Sam? Is it?
Yeah. So yeah. I'm really lucky in the sense that she loves wildlife. I've tried to get her into photography a couple of times, but she's not really interested in that. But what I am lucky at, she loves just jumping in the car. We go up to the Peak District pretty much most weekends. It's a great opportunity for us. We've got two kids, so we can go out without them. They're old enough now to leave them at home. We can have a nice chat together. We usually put a podcast. It's an hour and a half drive up there, and then switch everything off, and then we just drive around the peaks. I've always got the camera in the back, so if ever there's an opportunity where, I don't know, a barn owl appears or something appears, I can get a few shots. And it's good. It's been really good for our relationship. That's sort of like our little bit of time that we get together. At home, you're sat in front of the telly sometimes watching telly. It's busy. The kids are asking for something, so you don't get that chance. So we've tried to at least once a week now jump in the car, put the camera in the back, and use it as a bit of an excuse for us to go out and put the world to right. Yeah, absolutely, and it's really important. We've been married now 20 odd years, so it's important just to keep that going, and it's important for a relationship, I think. So yeah, it works for us.
I think that'll actually quite tie as well onto probably the topic of the podcast as a way to get into it. Obviously, I'm very lucky that Susie, she doesn't always like to come out, and she's very honest about that, but she's probably the most supportive person in the sense that if I say to her, like, next weekend, me and Dan are in Leeds photographing badgers for the weekend and that, and obviously I told Susie, and she didn't even question it. She's like, absolutely, yeah, go for it, absolutely. Yeah, I know it makes you happy. I know it's good for your head and stuff like that. Yeah. Absolutely 100% go for it. She never says no. She always says, as long as we have a plan for at home, like if the kids or anything like that, and as long as I know where you are, as long as I know you're safe, then absolutely 100% go for it. And having that kind of supportive partner and having that partner that's willing to come along and do all that stuff with, because I've been in the relationships where they restrict you and they don't really care. And I don't mind saying that because I know that not a chance they'll be listening to this.
Yeah, I can say it too as well. None of them will be listening to this, but I know where you come from, Corey. It's nice to have, especially when you come from like previous relationships where they don't necessarily support it. It's always nice and refreshing, and Jen's the same with me. She definitely won't come out on a good 90% of the stuff I do, but
it's nice that they support.
She's always forcing me. I mean, it's like when I go up to the goats and stuff, and my alarm goes off at 6 a.m. and I'm like, oh yeah, I really can't be arsed, and she's just like chucking me out of bed basically to go.
So it's only so she can get her of a bloke.
She'll be listening to this, so you're getting a message, mate.
I know, I'm only kidding, Jen. I think you're a very lovely person. You wouldn't do that to Dan. But literally, as we speak now, as we're recording this podcast, which is something for me, which I really enjoy doing, or something for us, sorry, Dan, which I really, really enjoy doing. I can hear Teddy kicking the shit out of Susie upstairs while she's trying to get him to sleep, and she doesn't complain. She's like, "Yeah, I'll make sure I get him up and stuff like that." Because I don't mind him being downstairs while I'm filming, but if you heard last week, Danny likes to come sit on my knee and try and get into the mic and stuff and talk and stuff like that, which it'd be good for maybe the future co-host. But no, she gets him up and gets him away. But I think while we kind of eased onto the topic of supportiveness and our partners, which obviously are good for us, what the topic, obviously, if you probably gathered by the title, the topic of today's podcast is all about mental health awareness, why our hobby is so important to us, and why it's so important for us to speak. And we're hopefully by listening to us free, however awkward or uncomfortable one of us might find it, chat about these things, we can try and help a few of our listeners. So yeah, let's move on to the important part. So how to start this? Dan, what do you reckon? How do you reckon we go into this?
I can help you.
Yeah, go on then, Mike. I knew. Do you know what, Mike? I knew you was gonna, I knew it. So I do know.
Yeah. And you know, I talk about this on a regular basis to lots of people. I do mental health awareness training, and I use my story as a bit of an opener. And the feedback I've got from people when I've done a mental health talk is it's lovely to hear someone who's experienced it. It coming from their heart rather than somebody stood in front of them just putting all the facts out there and all the statistics, which I've sat in mental health training sessions and you know, you're just bombarded with all the facts, the figures and the statistics where, you know, it's more to that. There's more to it than that. So
anybody can read from a fact file. I think this is why we kind of asked you to come on to do this episode, because we see all the time how much you're an advocate for mental health and the passion that comes from you for it, and who kind of better than something that we know personally and something that we can personally see that passion, and the how much you stress the importance of it.
And as I said, I grab every opportunity to you know, use any platform to talk about mental health awareness. You know, it's what we need to do. The more that we talk about it, the easier it will be to talk about, and not talking about it is the reason why a lot of guys are struggling and we're losing, you know, a hell of a lot of people just in the UK, well, in the world, but in the UK alone, it's incredible when you see the figures.
It's a lot. I mean, in the past 5-6 years, I've lost 3 friends to mental health conditions, which has unfortunately led them to taking their own lives, and it's awful. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not numb to it, but because of the kind of taboo, especially growing up, of men talking about the mental health, you kind of just forget about it, which isn't good at all. And these people that have taken their own lives, I'm sure they wouldn't want us to forget about it. But the importance. What we'll do is we'll just jump straight into it, and we'll talk about why. So why you think it is so important for us to talk about and open up on it.
Yeah, I mean, from my side of things, Dan and Corey, I've mentioned that it was about 5 years ago when I started doing wildlife photography, and I started doing wildlife photography as a means of escape after having a breakdown myself. So if I go way back to when I was younger, my parents split up. It was quite an unusual breakup where my mum left the home. So my dad was left with 3 kids. He wasn't sort of like the modern day man, so he had to learn very, very quickly. We was getting sort of like hot dogs and beans on toast and things like that.
Not wrong with them.
That's all he could cook at the time. He learned very quickly, but I was about 13, 14 at the time, and it became apparent to me very, very quickly that he was really starting to struggle. Even as a young lad, I could notice he was losing weight. He was then signed off work through stress. The workplace was totally different then. It wasn't supportive. So they actually hounded him to get back to work and put pressure on him, which really sort of like made things worse. He was really struggling to come to terms with the fact that his marriage had broken up and he was looking after 3 kids. And I mean, without going into too much detail, unfortunately, one night, and I was aware what was happening, I was really concerned about him, and I made an excuse to go downstairs and get a drink. And unfortunately, I found my dad on the settee unresponsive. There was a suicide note there, which I read. There was pills and a bottle of whiskey that he'd drunk. So I don't know why, but at that time I went into shock and I went and hid in the room. And I didn't do anything all night. You know, as you can imagine, it's just you're in shock. You don't know how to deal with something like that.
It's a traumatic scenario for anybody of any age to go through.
100%. It wasn't until my brother was waking up the next morning where I thought I'm going to have to go downstairs. And I went downstairs, and my dad was moving. He was unsuccessful, and everything got cleared up. And if I'm honest with you, I don't remember too much about everything that happened after. Obviously, he was unsuccessful. We believe that basically the whiskey had knocked him out before he'd had enough too many tablets to do it. So thankfully. Having said all that, you are the mind is very, very clever. So what it did, it literally blocked everything out. I don't remember thinking about that. I didn't talk about it to anyone. I mean, I say I've been with my wife now since 2000. Didn't talk to her about it. Never mentioned it to anyone. And it was something really insignificant that was said to me, and it just clicked. And for some reason, all those fear emotions started coming back, and I went downhill rapidly. And I was showing all the classic signs of somebody struggling with mental health issues. I withdrew from all the WhatsApp groups I was on. I was always quite talkative on the groups I was on. I become snappy with the kids and with Sam. And, she said it was like treading on eggshells, didn't know who was going to come through the door. The other thing I really remember is at the time I was working for a big construction company. It was quite a senior position, and people were coming in to present the tenders to me. And I remember having to read the tender probably 3 or 4 times because I was reading it, but my mind was going so fast that on other things, I was reading the words, but there wasn't sinking in. So I was having to read it again and read it again. This is a classic sign of somebody that's really struggling. And then finally, some people turn to drink or drugs to try and numb the pain. For me, I started drinking heavily. It was more for me to sleep of an evening. So I would drink to knock myself out for the night. And that become a sort of like a normality thing. Obviously, drinking's the worst thing for you. You used to wake up then at 2 o'clock in the morning. If ever you've been out and had a good session and then you're knocked out, at 10 o'clock of a night sleep, and then you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you'll know that feeling.
Where you go,
oh my God, I'm wide awake now and I can't get to sleep. And because I had so much stuff and thoughts running through my mind, lots of emotion. I just couldn't sleep. So, yeah, all that compiled, it just, I ended up, if I'm honest with you, I was at a cricket game. It was England versus Australia. I had stripped down to my boxer shorts that were in the style of a tuxedo suit with a dicky bow on.
Is there a photo of this online somewhere?
I have got a photo of it, and I do use it in my presentations.
I'm sure I've seen this photo before.
Yeah, and I literally got everybody to do a Mexican wave. 27,000 people doing a Mexican wave, and what I always say is that's me trying to tell 27,000 people that I'm okay, and I really wasn't. I was at my lowest at that point. About 4 or 5 hours after that, I had a breakdown. So it just shows, don't look at somebody and think they're absolutely fine. Look at them. I was having a whale of a time. I was drunk. Everybody was laughing around me. We was doing a Mexican wave, and literally hours after, I come crashing down and had a breakdown.
It's mental health is one of those things, isn't it, where it shows its signs in different ways, and some people you can visibly see that they're struggling. And then it gets to other points, and friends that one of my really good friends that I lost, we were on a night out with them a day or 2 before, and they were so happy. And they obviously weren't, but they looked it and they'd never heard from them again. And it just shows that you might be at your peak, you might visibly look like you are, like obviously you doing your Mexican wave and your boxers. I can imagine everybody around you thought, bloody hell, this guy's right.
Yeah,
brilliant guy.
Animal. Yeah,
and then obviously you don't know what's going on inside.
I was with a fantastic friend called Caroline, and she's done lots of work and training around sort of like mental health awareness. She realised things wasn't going quite right for me, and she could just see the changes in me. She sat down with me and said, "Are you okay?" And, as most people will do, is the first answer is, yeah, I'm absolutely fine. And she said she did it properly. You've got to be very tactile, but try and use an excuse or something like that to ask again. Just say, you don't seem to be, you don't seem to be yourself. And, are you sure you're okay? Have you got any issues? It's proven that if you ask somebody a second or a third time, they're more likely to open up. So having done sort of like lots of talks and training on this type of thing, it's become apparent that a lot of people that are unsuccessful in suicide have said that they actually changed their mind during the act. Now, if
I
that's
think one of the
case,
biggest things that goes from what I've read, I think like through like over half people's minds is during the act of however they're doing it is regret.
yeah. Now, if that's the case for people who are unsuccessful, it's got to be the same for people who are successful.
100%.
And
So,
it's heartbreaking to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is why it is so important to talk and just ask the questions, and just see, and this is why I explain how I was feeling, because if people can recognize those signs, in a friend, friend's family or a colleague, and it helps one person, then, I've done my job, and if it helps just that one person, then that's brilliant.
But I mean, what will obviously on that kind of topic, then obviously this is a pod. Obviously, I know we normally have the guest on, we're sitting here your side of it.
Yeah.
But given the special kind of episode that we're doing, with me and Dan, obviously, I don't know, I don't think me and Dan have ever kind of spoke about this personally, but obviously we both have our problems as well. And however uncomfortable it is for me to talk about my problems and the things that I've kind of gone through in life, I will do the same. And it's something I've always struggled with, is to talk, even with my own partner. And it all started for me, bloody hell, how old would I have been? 8, 9 maybe. And I mean, I grew up in a very not broken family, but my parents divorced when I was, how old was I? 3 maybe. So I don't remember that side of it. I grew up in a very happy family. So my mum got remarried to my stepdad before I could even remember. So obviously I've always my stepdad in my life, and that side of my family, like I've got brothers and sisters that I get along with really well and whatnot. So my home life was brilliant. And then going to school, just from school onwards, it was just awful. I got bullied horrendously from the age of about 8 till I was about 15, maybe. Just awfully, which can lead to a lot of problems later on in life. I have an awful habit of not trusting people simply because of the stuff that went on through school. So even close friends, people that I admire quite well, I will try and sabotage it in my own way because of what I went through during school, and what I went through with the people around me, just did the cruel little tricks.
Yeah.
And then I got to about 16, I think, and I had a really good year. I kind of came out of that. I started playing rugby more often, which obviously Dan, again, I'll say it again. I live and breathe my rugby. Yeah. I talk about it at least once every podcast, and that was my go-to thing, was rugby, and I was really enjoying it. I was doing really well. I got into really good fitness and really good strength. And then, again, if my child listens to this in the future, don't take this the wrong way, but then I found out I was going to be a dad. And when you're 17 years old and you get that pressure on you, that bloody hell, you're going to have somebody, a little kid, like needing you and rely on that was, I don't think that spiraled.
Responsibility at 17, that is, isn't it?
It was huge. And a lot of people that see this with me, and I mean, I come across as a bit of a, not a cock, I'm a bit of a gobshite maybe and stuff like that and whatnot, and I slack my kids off on Facebook as a joke. Obviously people all know it's a joke because I constantly praise my kids and stuff as well, but people don't realise that pressure that was on me. And I think it's obviously, you see a lot on Facebook about the pressure that young mums and any mum goes through after having a child, which is true 100%. I've seen it with both my kids' parents, but the pressure, especially for a 17-year-old to get told that they were going to be a dad, having to look after a new child, not having a full-time paying job, because 7 years ago when I found out, I was on £4 an hour, I think, £4.50 an hour, which isn't a lot of money. Didn't have a house. I was living at my ex-partner's mum's house. That criticism just from everybody came in, like, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be focusing on whatever. You don't have a job, you shouldn't be a dad, your kid's not going to be proud of you, you're not going to be able to support them. And that was horrendous. And for the first 2 years of his life, that criticism continued heavily from even from my own family sometimes. Me and my ex were an awful couple. We fought all the time. We argued. It was just horrendous. And then we split up and I lived on my own, and I couldn't afford my heating. I couldn't barely even afford my rent. I couldn't just muster up the strength just to get out and go to work, because I just thought, what's the point? I'm going to go to work for a small amount of money, come home, and I'm just not going to be able to afford anything. I had that mindset for years. I then went through some traumatic kind of experiences. So on Christmas morning in 2017, I woke up to a knife to my throat. One of our neighbours, off his face on drugs, decided to test his luck with the door handles, and just his luck, we'd not locked the door. Stupidity, I know, especially where we lived at the time. And he spent an hour in our house dragging me around with a knife to my throat, asking for all our money, took all of our savings in cash, all my savings in cash, phones, the full lot, which I wasn't too bothered about. Obviously, I know in them situations, your life's more valuable than a couple of quid. But at the same time, when I think, fucking hell, that's all the money I've got, and I never got it back because I couldn't prove that they took it from me. But that situation on its own, that then spiraled into...
Corey, did you feel that sort of like after the event where it hit you, what had just happened?
God, yeah, 100%. I mean, the similar to obviously you with your dad, the shock. I kept telling everyone was like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Like, yeah, obviously I'm still alive and stuff like that. And then I remember, but 3 nights later, because I'd fallen asleep on the sofa. I'd come back from my parents' house. Obviously, I had a drink and I'd fallen asleep on the sofa. And I remember falling asleep on the sofa again at my mum's house because I packed up that house, moved out straight away into my parents' house. And I woke up after about 40 minutes and I was petrified. Like, just the darkness was awful. Like, I just had this, I don't know, like a really lucid dream of it happening again. And that stuck with me for about 2 years. I couldn't sleep on the sofa for. I couldn't get any sleep at all because it got to a point where I couldn't fall asleep upstairs and I needed to keep the lights on. So I was just going out and sitting in the garden at my mum's house. And then during that, I then lost my granddad, kind of on top of it. We knew it was going to happen. He had terminal cancer. But then that chucked in. I was very close to my granddad as well. Obviously, if anybody listens to this, they see me on Facebook. Both my boys' middle name is Angus, which is after my granddad. I love Scotland because of that connection I had with my granddad. Very, very close family member. So that kind of then added a lot more onto it in terms of the grief, because the grief hit me straight away with that. We knew it was coming, and no matter how much you have time to prepare, when it happens, obviously we've all lost family members. You know it's coming sometimes, but you just don't have the ability to kind of process it until it does. And that hit me straight away, and that was only a few short months after I'd gone through the burglary. Yeah, so that then added a lot more. So basically with that, I'd gone from a year of kind of feeling back to my normal self, then plunged straight into this being a new dad, then bloody hell, nearly getting my throat slit in the middle of the night by somebody on drugs, then losing one of the most important people in my life. And then 6 months later, got a phone call, lost my nana. I managed just to get to the hospital about an hour before she passed. And then, then we lost my nana. And then a month later, got another phone call, lost another, my stepdad's dad, which I know he's not blood family, but he was still my granddad, out of the blue, which just all kind of plummeted together, all these multiple events within the space of a year. It's a lot to go through for anybody of any age, losing 3 family members and having all this kind of extra pressure put on you. And then these scenarios where you lose your sleep. Which I know is kind of a lot.
Well, that is the classic signs. That is. So the way it was explained to me was, if you can imagine your head as a bucket and you've got all the modern sort of like strains of life, family, work, money, this, that, and the other, and they're all pouring in. So in a normal case, that will overflow, even just sort of like with modern day life. So it's important to have that tap at the bottom, which for us is probably wildlife photography, and that stops it overflowing. But when you throw in a stressful situation like having a young one when you're very, very young, going through a traumatic situation, and the loss of a loved one or family one on top of it, it's a classic sign of somebody who's really, really going to struggle. And these are when, if we know someone that's going through these type of things, this is when we've got to be really careful around them and make sure that they are right, they are okay, and that we're talking to them all the time, because these are usually the people that, and thankfully you didn't go down that route, but people who are struggling like that can take their own life. And the other thing I picked up on as well, which you said, you was going to work for a little amount of money and you just felt like it was pointless. And that's another thing that people get into, and they end up literally locking themselves away. Going to work is actually a really positive thing, because you actually get out and get to talk to people.
You get out, you put your brain on the go.
And also you've got a bit of sense of purpose as well. So you can get into a rut not doing that, and that just amplifies everything on top of all the problems that you're going through, and that is, a classic sign of somebody who's potentially taking their life.
I say I didn't have that tap. I didn't have that feeling of purpose. Even when I went to work, like I know in hindsight, if I continued at it, but I ended up quitting my job. I ended up going to stay with some family down south for a period of time just for something a bit different. And then I came back up and just I did well and truly lock myself away. I didn't see my friends. I'm a skinny bloke. You've both met me. You know what I'm like a person. I went from 11 stone to about 8 stone because I wasn't eating. I was just in a state. Mm-hmm. And that continued up until COVID, because me and Susie met. And that tap, obviously, I was doing my wildlife photography, which was like like when you leave you don't fully turn the bath off and it's just got a little drip. That's my bucket in my head. That little drip of wildlife photography was getting there because I was only doing it at a basic level. I wasn't at the point I'm at now. And then I met Susie, which I know is real cliche, but you meet the right person and so on, blah, blah, blah. She's probably been sobbing at this as well because she's a real emotional person. And then the tap kind of turned on and it was brilliant. Everything was kind of going away. She helped me get over a lot of stuff. She helped me because she was there when I found out my granddad passed away. She was really good for all of it, and she's very much driven on making me talk, and she's always been so supportive, which was great. And then we had Teddy, which we weren't planning, but it happened. I was buzzing about it because I thought, do you know what, right? I had Riley at 17 and I got through that, and I've got a beautiful, really intelligent little boy that I've seen Susie with. She was absolutely fantastic with from the day she met him. So she's been in Riley's life since he was 3 years old, and I had no issues with that. But then it got closer to the time, and I'm thinking all them feelings kind of flooding back, like, what if I fail again? What if I'm not good at it? And then I lost my job. I got made redundant from one job. I was in a motorbike accident, which caused me to quit my other job. I had no money coming through, was relying on family. And I thought, fucking hell, I've got a newborn child. And then all this shit on top of me as well. Or like, I don't have a job anymore. And then that put the pressure on our relationship, which, so that started about a year ago. Just over a year ago in January, I got made redundant from my last job. And then for about, I'd say, up till October. So up till October from January, the pressure was just building up. Me and Susie were arguing all the time. And it got to the point in October where Susie kicked me out of the house after an argument. And it was like, reality hit me. I was like, shit, I might lose my relationship here. I might lose the only person that fucking talks any sense into me. And then I came round I picked Teddy up from nursery, brought him back to the house. Susie came in and we got chatting, and I'm not an emotional person. I don't cry. I never have done, even at funerals, things like that. For anything, I shed a tear when my kids were born, and that was pretty much it. But for some reason on that night, everything just poured out massively. And I've never actually told it, apart from Susie, obviously she was there, never told anybody about that because I don't like showing emotion. I still see it as weakness. I know it isn't, I don't want people to think it is, because emotion is not weakness at all. But just in my head, especially at school, when I used to get bullied into the point where I was in tears, kids would laugh at me for it. Like, oh, why are you crying for, you little wimp, or whatever. Obviously wimp's a soft word to what I used to get called, but just in my head,
it is funny, isn't it? How I don't know why it is, but us blokes feel, I don't, if I'm honest with you, but a lot of guys feel that they can't show their emotion.
It's locked in my head. I can't do it unless it's emotion that, like anger, for example. Like, I've struggled with my anger for a long time. I'm not a violent person. I shout, swear, and I storm out of the house and I rage, and then give me an hour and I'll calm down.
It's always that hour later you feel like an absolute dick, don't you?
And straight after that, the argument, I'll never forget it as well. The argument that me and Susie had, it just got out of control. And the only time I've ever not been violent, I would ever lay a finger on my kids, on Susie or anything like that. But I had a plate of food in my hand and I saw black and launched this plate, and I was just like, bloody hell, what? And the second I did it, I was like, fucking hell, what have I just done here? I felt real guilty. And I knew there was nothing I could do about it. It happened, and I kind of faced consequences. She kicked me out for a few weeks, and then that night that came round and it all just poured out. Like, I just couldn't, I don't think I've ever cried so much in my life. Just everything, all these feelings of depression and things like that. Because depression is something I don't like to use. I don't like to use that word a lot because it's not something. I've had my moments where I've been really low, but for me, it's always been the anxiety of things and that worry and whatnot. And it was just that worrying that I wasn't going to be a good enough dad or a good enough partner, or that I might not be able to afford to do this, or Susie might find somebody better than me that can actually provide for them. All that kind of came rushing out, and that was probably the best thing for our relationship, that conversation. Since then, we set up. This is going to sound really daft, but we have an app on our phone. Mike, I'd recommend, I don't know if you might already use it, to be fair, but it's called Paired. And we get a daily question, daily quiz that we can't see the answers to until we've both answered it. So, for example, today's question was, what are you most proud of achieving together last year? So we put our answers in, and then we both see it, and we can sit and talk about it afterwards. Just little things like that. And we've started dedicating an hour a week for the relationship. And just by fixing our relationship, the point I'm at now compared to a year ago for me is massive. I haven't, apart from obviously my physical health, which has brought me down a lot, but all those issues that I had in the past, obviously I've spoke about you before, Mike. Obviously, I went for a point last year where I was looking at my friends on Facebook and stuff like that, seeing their images and just this awful jealousy coming over and this just like bitter like voice in the back of my head, just being like, just nothing but negativity, and going through certain stuff with previous friends that have then kind of proven some of my thoughts a little bit of these the reason why I have trust issues with people, having to go through all that again last year and stuff like that. But comparing that to now, the trust that I have for my friends, that kind of worry that I don't have anymore, it's just massive. And I think that all stemmed around that event, that one night with Susie, where I've managed to get it all out and just have that for hours we were talking for, and it was brilliant. And it's kind of like somebody's just completely opened that tap up and everything's come out in one go. And you just feel brilliantly for afterwards.
And that's why, talking about it, guys, we've got our egos and we've got our pride. A little bit different in our house. The kids laugh at me all the time and throw tissues at me because I'm always crying, whether something's happy on the telly or whether it's sad on the telly. I'm the first to go.
Right. Since I've been the same.
Oh, that's it, mate. Now the tap's open.
We watched that one scene from Our Planet with the walruses.
I was a mess at that as well.
Yeah,
I was watching The Good Doctor. I've been watching The Good Doctor, and every episode, I'm like, there's something where I'm sat wiping away tears in my eyes. I'm like, this is beautiful. Why am I crying?
I did that with David Attenborough's the one where they were in I think it was the Penguins, and they fell into the hole and they couldn't get out. I was crying my eyes out, going, God, you've got to help.
It was horrific. Was that one? It was so
even
tough.
The crew was crying though, wasn't it? Like, we can't just.
Do you know what though? I'm glad for those moments though, because I worried that I just couldn't feel emotion. I was like, wow, I'm just not getting emotional. Like, I was at my granddad's funeral, something I loved massively. I didn't even shed a tear. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? But then it just took that one thing to tip it over the edge. And now I'm like, I'm more comfortable. I'm still not fully comfortable showing it, but I'm getting there.
Oh, well, if you'd have drove past me, Ian Howells and Chris Lowe in the Island Mall, we'd spent 2 hours with an otter and had the most unbelievable experience. And she literally curled up in front of us and went to sleep on a rock, literally 6 meters away from us.
Wow. 3 grown men are blubbering.
And literally, we walked back to the van. I look round, Chris has got tears rolling down his cheek. Ian's got a tear in his eye. I'm absolutely in bits, I am.
I felt similar when I photographed the otter on Loch Spelv in Mull, and that was more of accomplishment. It was just a beautiful moment, and obviously we'll move on shortly onto the wildlife photography side of things and why it's important. Because I've just waffled on, and it just proves how crap I am at talking, because that was a fruit salad of emotion from me.
Then that was like. That's good for you to open up and talk on a podcast. That is massive. That is, honestly.
I wouldn't even do it to my own parents. Like, I don't even talk to my own mum about your mum's someone that you're supposed to be able to talk to. And I just even now I just can't, and I feel awkward doing it. Even Susie, like now, like we've had that moment, and she'll ask me if I'm all right and stuff like that. And I'm at a point now where I can say, "Oh, something's bothering me, something's going on here," and stuff like that. But I'm still not at a full point.
I couldn't talk about what had happened to me without breaking down for a long time, but then I was asked to do some talks and this, that, and the other, and literally by just talking to people and random people, and even if I'm out with the camera and I talk to people and I explain the story of how I got into wildlife photography, it absolutely helps me, and now I'm quite comfortable talking about it. So it definitely helps. The more you talk about it, Corey, the more comfortable you'll be.
Even just after that, I feel a bit of a weight off my chest. Like, I don't really have that weight on my chest anymore. But it comes on every now and again, especially, I mean, recently I've had bloody hell, choking my water there. Recently I've been off work for 3 months with my health and stuff, and obviously I've had that anxiety, like, fucking, I'm going to get sacked from work here and I've got no money coming in because I've been on sick pay and stuff like that. And it's all worked out, but it's not as bad as it used to be. Like I said,
sorry, mate. Go on.
I'll briefly chat later on about some of the, because obviously I think on the podcast while you're here, Mike, it'd probably be a good opportunity for me to sit and chat about some of the issues that we've probably had in the past and stuff as well, which I have no worries about doing if you're open for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't had any issues.
Sorry. The issues that I've had, which I'll quickly go into it now. Actually, so obviously last year it wasn't just yourself as well. So even you, Dan. Obviously you don't know this because I didn't.
No, but I think I know where you're going with it, and I think there was a period of time where we sort of lost contact.
Yeah, and it wasn't just yourself; it was everybody.
Yeah,
all my friends, and so I went. So I won't go into too much detail, but I had somebody that I considered a very close friend. I found out a lot last year that the one person that when I started to open up a little bit, it was to them because we spent a lot of time together, and they then went and told a lot of strangers and a lot of people that I didn't know all these issues and made a bit of a mockery of me. Had a bit of a laugh and joke about it, as well as some other bits and bobs. And after finally regaining that trust for people again, especially like people I call friends and stuff like that all disappeared. So I was getting to the point where I was sat on the sofa late at night and I was scrolling through Facebook and I was seeing like Mike's work, for example, and all this just jealousy comes into my head, and that jealousy then turns into animosity and then terrible thoughts, and it did really change how I saw a lot of people, like you including, Mike. Obviously, we've briefly spoke about this on Facebook and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it took so I went to Scotland with Rob, and I kind of aired out Rob a little bit as well. And Rob knows about this. I've had a few people kind of get in touch with me and be like, "Oh, Rob's actually said this about you," and Rob said that. And it turns out he never did. It was these people just trying to stem a little bit of a laugh because they knew that it got to me a little bit. And when I kind of found that out and had a good chat with Rob about it in Scotland, I kind of sat back a little bit and thought, hang on a minute, how come I've been such a bloody arsehole to these people? Like, obviously, Mike, we'd had conversations where I probably made a few comments about the fact that you don't come and we don't do anything, we don't see each other and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I sit and think, hang on a minute.
You had a bit of a rant, wasn't it? And I think it was over at the time you had the hide and you kept on asking me to come up. And for me, I mean, I knew it was aimed at me when you had that rant on Facebook, but I am old school where I don't air anything like that on Facebook. If you look now, and every single one of my posts on Instagram, it'll all be positive. It's never a back having a little dig at somebody, or I don't play the light game where I don't like these images. I've never ever done that. I've always tried to portray myself as being very, very positive. But what I will do is, as you know, Corey, I just messaged you direct and said, just to let you know, if that's aimed at me, these are the reasons. And we don't need to go into all of that, but there was a whole host of reasons why I didn't come up. And we went into that, and I think after that conversation, we sort of like understood each other. And
it just took a bit of common sense from me, I think, as well, because I knew these reasons. Like, I was sat reading and thinking, I know this, but why am I thinking the way I am and stuff like that? And it just all stemmed down to just the lack of trust I had for people at the time, like friends and stuff like that, and the fact that I've been kind of screwed over a lot by people. It kind of gets in your head that everybody's doing the same thing again, even though deep down I know they're not. Like Dan, for example, like, we didn't really chat that much. We lost a lot of contact, but I was seeing your images and stuff, and I'm thinking, there was like times where, like, Mike, for example, like, you'd post up photos of like Bempton Cliffs, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, that's half an hour from where I live, and you've got to come through where I live to go to there. But why haven't they called in on me? But then I think, but they don't have to. Like, he didn't owe me that. He's come up for the day with his mate and stuff. Like, why am I worrying about it? And I just end up in this battle with myself constantly for hours. And I'm looking back now, and I've said it to yourself, Mike. I was a dick back then. I know it was only.
You know what, though, mate? You was honest about it, and not a lot of people would have done that. And
exactly.
And me and Chris said, you know what? Fair play to Corey. He's got back in touch. He's apologised, and we have a lot of respect for you to doing that. But again, just going back to sort of like wildlife photography, I do see it time and time again. It's jealousy. People spend too much time worrying about what gear other people have got, what locations they're going to, what they're photographing. Do you know what? Get that energy and put it into your own stuff. Think about the amazing stuff that you're doing, because it's all that type of stuff is terrible for mental health. You don't want to be sat there, and like you was, Cora, getting yourself into a frenzy thinking about this person, that person. Actually, you want to spend that time going, do you know what? I'm going to focus more on my photography. I'm going to research some locations. I'm going to learn more on learn your craft. We're so lucky nowadays. You can go on YouTube, and I know there's a load of rubbish on there, but there's some absolutely fantastic people.
Maybe it was not about me then.
All the no, but learning stuff about your own cameras. I mean, the cameras nowadays do so much stuff. People don't know half the stuff they do, and if you use that time to sort of learn some of the extra things that the camera does, it can make a massive difference to your images.
Right. 100%. It is what we said earlier about time and effort and stuff like that. And I suppose after a while, you kind of think, I'm putting all this time in, but I'm not producing what they're producing. But then I got to the point where I'm taking my images, and while I'm out there, I'm looking at the back of my camera and I'm absolutely buzzing. So why am I not taking this back to my computer? And it's because in between me looking at my camera and then getting home, I scroll through Instagram and see 10 images of a similar subject that were all better than mine. But I'm at a point now,
mate. As soon as you post anything on Instagram, all you see is those images.
Yeah, and that's it. And but I'm at the point now where I'm thinking, but I'm still happy with them. Like I can see my learning curve and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I still get a bit of jealousy every now and again. But the Arctic Foxes, I am up to my ears in jealousy with them. But in the good kind of jealousy where you're like, oh, that's absolutely fantastic. I can't believe he's been able to go do that. Like zero animosity jealousy, more of a that's a trip I'd love to do one day. I'm so jealous.
Like a proud moment seeing your friend succeed.
You've worded that brilliantly then, because that's exactly how I feel now. Every time I see one of your photos, Mike, what your photos, Dan, Rob's photos, Chris's photos, Chris is another fantastic photographer, Rob is a fantastic photographer. I'm now not looking at them thinking, fucking hell, why haven't I got that photo? I'm looking at them thinking, I'm absolutely buzzing for them that they've taken that photo. Like I'm proper, even though you don't need me to be, especially like Mike, your image is fantastic. Dan, you're always going to produce both the same quality. It's always like leagues above a lot of other people I know, but I still get that feeling of buzz and happiness just from seeing your photos, and then it motivates me even more to then go out and give it a go myself.
And that's the best way to look at it. And that's the way I use social media. I'm inspired by so many photographers, and not just particular photographers, sometimes just an image, and I go, oh my word, I love the way that looks. I'm going to try and go out now and I'm going to try and capture something, whether it's the same subject or something different, but using that style and using it to inspire me and to learn more. And I think that's what we've got to use social media for, because that's where it's brilliant. You can see thousands of images and get so much inspiration if it's used correctly.
Yeah, it's one of those platforms in it where it's got its positives, it's got its negatives, and we don't want to chat about negatives of social media.
No, but just quickly before we do, I think that's where a lot of my sort of, I mean, I've not experienced anywhere near as much trauma as you have, Mike, and you, Corey, but I think that's where a lot of my sort of issues kind of stemmed from was social media when I first started out as sort of a photographer. There wasn't much really in my early life, but it started probably about then. And, it just goes back to all the negatives. And it's like you said, Mike, there's so many people out there that will just try shit on, what you do. And I think you get in such a spiral. And like you said, Coy, it just does become a spiral where you sit there and you just self-criticize to the point where you're almost like beating yourself up.
I've seen the abuse that people have given you, and I don't blame you, because maybe the first time they do it, it's a bit of a jerk. But when that same person, because we both had it from the exact same bloke, didn't we? Even when we blocked them and stuff like that.
Now it's been years.
Yeah, it's been about a year for me, but it's been a lot longer than that for you. And it gets to you, and I'm at a point now where I don't worry about him. But I saw the stuff that I do to you and that, and you got to think after a while, however much it's not true, it is going to sit on your head and it is going to dwell on you.
It's the relentless of it. It's just like, the odd comment here and there is fine. But, when someone has a targeted campaign every single day for, a year, you start to believe it almost.
Oh, see, that's where I'm different. I just jump up in the car and pay him a visit.
Well, we've offered this person.
honestly.
Block first one, delete second, and then bury them the second. No, I'm joking.
We've both given this person these opportunities to do that, and I think the last time actually I got the address. If you're bored one day, Dan, we can go sort out a few old issues if you want.
The thing is, though, for me, it's like, I know we joke on the podcast, don't we, Corey? We say, oh, I'm probably the most hated person in the industry.
It's not even a joke for me.
Yeah, no, it is. But but it's just I wouldn't mind. I say I wouldn't mind it. If it's one person here and there, it's not. I'm not too arsed. It's just been this weird, relentless campaign from 3 or 4 people, and it's the sort
You look
of
at them
time.
3 or 4 people and realize how far up each other's asses their own arse. So
Yeah, and this is it.
One of them's going to
And
have that feeling. They're all going to have it.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's there's the 2 people that we know about, or that you know about, Corey, and there's the other bloke who, yeah, you know about because you made a comment about a bicycle and an ice cream van.
It was
or
an ice
something.
cream van and whiskey.
But that ruined friendships for me. Did that as well, because not what you said, but the sort of
The person
issues.
he was.
Yeah, the person he was ruined friendships because I had friends who were friends with him, and it all got so toxic, and there was information getting back to people, and I was accusing people of, a bit like with you, Corey, stuff that you'd said to people got back to sort of the people you didn't want it to get back to, and
they use it against you as a weapon, don't
yeah,
they?
it ruined so many friendships, and it's just stuff that plays on your mind, and if you let them play, like if you let it play on your mind, then yeah, you are going to spiral, and that's what happened to me. Many times I've been sat there with the relentless abuse, and I'm just like, right, fine. What's the
try and take a positive out of a negative, Dan? It's usually down to
jealousy,
being envious and jealous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And take it that become the other side you got to think of as well. And we're speaking about mental health. That person might be struggling with mental health issues themselves. Do you know what I mean? So try not to dwell on it. I've gone through similar with certain people and literally just block them, forget them, and it's no good for my mental health. And literally you just carry on. And in fact, it actually inspires me and pushes me, motivates me
to do better,
even more.
Yeah,
yeah.
And it's what I say to you, don't I, Corey, on quite regularly. I've flipped the coin now completely. So whereas before I'd sit and I'd dwell on it, and I'd let it consume me, and I'd sit there and think, I'm not good enough, and Jen's probably not going to listen to this, I imagine, because it's touchy subjects, but she said to me, I've said to her so many times, I'm packing it in, I'm going to sell up, and I'll move on to something else, but I've completely flipped it now, and this negativity, I just thrive off it.
You got a real talent, mate. So you've got to, it's some. Do you know what? It's a shame we're talking about negativity. It's such an amazing hobby. I mean,
it is.
We're talking about like our partners being supportive. We could be down the pub every night getting hammered, we're actually going out doing something really nice, photographing nature. Some of the comments that I get, it's lovely. People who can't get out anymore, they're either bedbound or stuck at home. And I get private messages just saying, keep doing what you're doing. I'm living it through you at the moment. I love seeing the images. It's helping their mental health doing it. So don't stop, because people just love seeing your images.
Yeah, it's great when you get that sort of positivity from
the messages I get.
Yeah, fantastic. It's great. I mean, I spoke briefly on the podcast one of the episodes before. I can't remember which one it was now, but during COVID,
Meg McCubbin.
It was Meg's, wasn't it? I was posting a photo a day for I think it was 100 days, and the amount of messages I got from people that were vulnerable, so they couldn't leave the house. I had people suffering with cancer and their own mental health, and just having those messages, it helped me through it as well. As much as my photos helped them, it certainly helped me through it.
Can I also say, sorry, Corey, can I also say, I know a lot of people will say about, it's not all about the likes and the comments, and it absolutely isn't about that, but that is also very important. So did you know when you get likes and comments, it releases dopamine and serotonin it's a chemical in your brain. It actually makes you feel good. It's really good for mental health.
I buzz off it, absolutely buzz. I love it. I love the likes and comments.
Yeah. So I always say, it's not about that, but please don't say, oh, these people with the likes and comments. It's quite an important thing. If it wasn't important, you wouldn't be on social media. Let's put it this way.
Exactly.
You'd be quite happy looking at your images, but you want to send them out there because it's lovely to get some recognition because we bloody put a lot of hard work in. We spend hours and hours and hours in all kinds of weather. We drive hundreds of thousands of miles. We have to be really, really patient. And sometimes, that one time when you've been there for 10 hours and you get a 30-second magical moment that's captured on the camera. Of course, you want some recognition for that. You think, oh my God, I've got it. You're absolutely buzzing at the time. And I can't wait sometimes to edit it and put it out there. And it's lovely to hear people going, oh, this is lovely. This is, like you say, it is actually really good for your mental health.
I love it. If I get a comment like Cerny, for example, you'll know Mike being a Cerny user. Yeah. How good are the Cerny team at engaging with their users? Yeah. And no matter how many times they do it, every photo I get a comment from Cerny, like, fantastic photo, this and that. And they might not mean it. They might just be doing it to engage, but it doesn't matter because I absolutely thrive off it. I love it. Get to see one of them comments.
Yeah, well, I met the lovely Vader from Sony at Wex Open Day a few months ago. Me and Chris went down and grabbed hold of her. She's only a little dot. So we literally grabbed hold of her and had a quick selfie with her. And she's been absolutely good as gold since. And she's been really positive about our photography. But I've got nothing bad to say about Sony. I made the switch a few years ago and
best thing I ever did was switch across a year and a half ago. I switched across to Sony, and I haven't looked back since. I think let's not make this a brand rep.
No, absolutely not. But there's no right camera. It's whatever suits you, isn't it?
Unless it's Canon.
Oh, I was waiting for that one.
You know what though? When we talk about sort of like one of the best images I've ever seen. Ever was taken by Chris Lowe when he'd sold all his gear and he was using his daughter's literally like a 200 quid Canon with a 18 to 55mm kit lens on it.
Wow.
And did you see his photo of a grass snake with the tongue out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we was both submerged in the water taking those photos. That's the camera he took it on.
Wow. But it just shows, doesn't it? You could spend thousands of pounds on gear, and if you don't have the right eye for it, if you don't have the right mindset, then it's redundant.
The one thing I will say, what we noticed, because Chris used to shoot with a Canon 1DX or the machine gun, as I like to call it.
It's somebody loud.
Chris was really sort of like quite deaf for most of his life, and he just didn't realise how loud it was. And then he had his hearing aids fitted and frightened the hell out. It was like, no wonder I've been scaring everything. I'm like,
I remember seeing that video that you put up of him being able to like hear properly for the first time and stuff.
So
that brought a bit of a tear to my eye.
It was beautiful, was that?
That was so emotional. Like I say, we've been really good friends. It's been great for us both. You mentioned sort of like in the last couple of years where my photography's developed. I'll put a lot of that down to being with Chris and us bouncing off.
He's so talented.
Technically is the best photographer I've ever met in my life. Honestly, it's ridiculous the stuff he can do, the stuff he was getting with his camera. But what he did say was he's now switched to Sony or any mirrorless camera, a modern day camera is the same. But what he said was, the hit rate on action shots and things like that, I was getting a lot more hits than he was. He would struggle to get sort of like really fast action shots, where now he's changed to the Sony with all the modern day technology and the tracking,
keeping up now,
autofocus. His hit rate is amazing. So we're all in a bit of trouble now because
he is good.
So
this is going to turn into a blowing smoke up Chris's ass podcast, I think.
I've got nothing bad.
You do enough of that on Facebook, to be fair. But.
You know what though? It's good because I can trust Chris. He can criticise my work, like not on social media, but he'll go, Mike, you've done this, and it's really good because I'll go, bloody hell. He's a little bit like Rain Man. So like he picks. You do remember Rain Man, don't you?
No, you're talking to the wrong bloke. See,
God, he's too young. So basically, it was Tom Cruise looking after a guy who had autism, and he could count things like somebody drop a box of matches, and he'd just go like 642, and they go, what? and she'd go and she'd read the box and go, oh no, look, there's 650. And he went, oh, close. And then she goes, oh, there's 8 left in the packet. So like his brain just picks up stuff. That's Chris. He's like made man when it comes to photography.
He just knows.
Yeah, when he sees an image and he'll pick up little tiny things about editing, which has really helped me because it's really honed my skill on that side of things. And then on the other side of things, we go out and spend a lot of time together. So we've both struggled with mental health, and it's lovely the fact that I've got somebody that I can talk to about my issues and he can talk to me, and we both help each other.
Having that person in your life is, I think, having somebody to talk to where you're comfortable is more important than anything, really. You can get rid of them hobbies, and if you've got somebody to talk to still, it's still...
Absolutely.
If you do that hobby on your own but didn't have somebody to talk to, you could be in a lot different place.
Yeah, I mean, the banter we have, and I rip into him loads, like when we're doing our little stories. We've had some brilliant comments back just saying,
what do you call him, Captain Happy or something like that?
Mr. Happy. But
Mr. Happy.
Somebody said to me the other day, look, you and Mr. Happy were out, and I'm going, my job's done now. Everybody's referring to Mr. Happy.
I'm going to start referring to him as that now, from this moment on.
Yeah, he needs it. But I think that'll flow us quite nicely into the next part, or the last part of the podcast, and that's why wildlife photography is so important to us, and the fun times that we've had, and the release that we get from it, and the memories that we've got from it. More importantly, because we could say it's done this for us, it's done that for us, but if we can't sit there and think of a good memory that we've had doing it, then are we just maybe kidding ourselves a little bit? I might be a little bit over the top there, but I mean, certainly we can all kind of reflect on a lot of good moments. Obviously, I see me and Dan and the entire Instagram community and Facebook community see the adventures that you and Chris get up to. So I'll ask. This might be a hard question for you, Mike, but of all the memories that you've had as a wildlife photographer, what is the one that sticks in your head more than anything? Whether that's because it was just such a mental release for you, or whether it was just like a proud moment or funny moment or whatever. Like just the one moment that'll always stick in your head.
Do you know what? There's so many. I mean, the one time when we was all in Mull. And we've been out looking for the otters for 14 hours, and we'd literally drove around everywhere, every lock. We'd seen some far out into the locks. We found some Loch Buoy that were close in. I think there was a couple of them close in, but there was like 30 people around them, and we really, really didn't want that experience. And we were like, nah, it's not even bother getting out. And so we kept driving. We'd been up since 4 o'clock in the morning. And we was just about to turn it in for the evening and go and look for the owls, because the sun was sort of like getting to that lovely golden hour. And as we was driving around the side of the loch, Chris spotted this otter, and he said, there's one. And it was lovely because there was nobody on the loch whatsoever apart from us. And literally Ian pulled up in his van, and we got out, and we all know our field craft. And if anybody hasn't sort of like done otter photography, you wait till they dive down, count, see how long they're down for on average, and then usually knock about 5 seconds off that next time the dive, and then you can make your move. We was literally getting about 100 yards in front of this otter. It was a female otter, and then literally wait for her to come to us. So we was lying flat on the stones right next to the water, sometimes half in the water. And she was just so comfortable, and she was literally, Chris had a 500 on. I've got a picture of Chris, and she's nearly touching the end of his lens. Wow. Like she's popped up. She's that close. She climbed over my foot at one point. I've got there is a photo that you might have seen. It's like golden light. I've only got a head in the shot. That is uncropped. That's how close she was.
Who's ringing?
Sorry, that's my son for some reason. I don't know why he's decided to call me. He's downstairs. And then literally, like, we had 2 hours of literally doing that. We'd wait till she got out the way. We'd get out the water, back round, out the way, and then lie down 100 yards and just let her come to us again. And we did that for 2 hours, and then she was just so comfortable. We was all lying there, and she literally curled up on a rock, literally 5 meters in front of us, and went to sleep and shook her fur. So it was all nice and dry. So, and the sun was just going down. It was just like that perfect moment. And all three
I
of
did
us
see the images and that, and
had a tear in our eye.
That was very similar to mine and Rob's because we were on our last day on Mull and we had driven around all the locks and stuff as well. And we finally headed to the south and we thought we'll have a little drive around this one. And we were just going by in the car on the lane and I was looking out the window and I saw an otter surface up in the water. So I said, "Look, there's one there. They're laid by about 100 metres up the road. Let's pull in there. We'll get out and work our way and see what we can see." And we got down, couldn't see anything. I was like, "Oh, brilliant." I was like, "We'll just have a little walk up and just in case." And I stopped on this rock and I was just looking out. I was like, "Oh, I maybe swam across the other side. I don't know." And then I just heard this weird noise. Obviously, if she made any noise at you, you'll know exactly what noise I mean, Mike. Like this kind of like rasping, squealing kind of noise. And I looked down at my feet and he's there on the rocks at my feet, like sniffing at my feet and stuff like that. And Rob's not looking. He was sat on his phone, like looking away in the distance. And I'm sat there trying to like subtly point out to Rob, like it's obviously, and I'm waving my arms. He sat looking at me and stuff like that. This is brilliant. And Rob Van looks across and he's like, "What are you on about?" And I pointed down and this otter's at my feet. And I was like, "No, I can't believe this is happening." And then he went back into the water. So I jumped down and I waited again. And he came back out the water right up to both of us, both our cameras. And he was just sat there feeding and just playing about.
Amazing.
And we walked about 500 meters up the side of this coast and he was just following us. Like we was ahead of him each time. And he was coming out and he was like running between us and then back onto the rocks and stuff again. And we didn't. I mean, there's no photos that I've got of that where I look back on and think, I'm proud of that. But there's photos that I look back on, and it just reminds me of that moment and how like comedy sort of it was. We had this otter just following us up and down, and like almost like he was playing with us, and toying with us. So yeah, that was. I think otters they just provide them kind of comedy moments, I suppose, in a way when you kind of look back and laugh at. You put all that effort in, and you have such a good moment like that. You're thinking, why did I put so many hours in just to have that kind of ease with this subject?
I'd never seen one until I went to Mull, mate. I'd never even seen an otter in the wild.
I had seen one. So I went to a place just outside of Hull last year. This is a real funny story. This I don't mind quickly telling this. So I went to this place. My mate had told me about it. So there's this location you can pop here. You just sit on. There's a public footpath that surrounds a small lake with a housing estate on the other side. He said, if you go there and just tuck yourself in the bushes, there's a few platforms they'll come and land on. I don't mind taking a bit of information from friends every now and again. It's not wrong with that. So I went and there we go, like this otter came out and it literally ran. There's a photo I put online of its ass just like 2 feet away from the end of my feet because she came out and she kept running from the dike behind me to the lake and I got some good photos. And then that's where I met Robert E. Fuller because I never knew who the bloke was properly. I'd heard of him and seen bits and pieces, but I bumped into him and we got harassed by a woman that lived in one of the houses accusing us of perving on her and stuff like that. So that was my first experience of photographing her. One of the women came out saying, "Oh, you're all coming here photographing us for our houses and stuff." And
honestly,
yeah, I thought it was just a real weird, funny moment. And there's two blokes that I met that day as well that I'm actually still real good friends with now.
That's good. I mean, that's a really good positive thing. The amount of people I've met through the hobby, it's lovely. We was out on the peaks the other night photographing barn owls and short-eared owls, and some people rocked up, and I was talking to an Irish guy, and his mate pulled up, and he went, "All right, Mike, this is the guy who went to Iceland. I was showing his images," and we all got talking. And when I meet people, I always try and add them on Instagram because I love to follow what they're doing as well and keep in touch. And yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
We didn't meet through WildTalk, did we? We met through. How did we meet? We met because through Jamie.
No, we met because Jamie said that you'd be good to come on my podcast.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
How the roles have reversed.
Yeah,
I just come runner up in a what competition was it?
Yeah, it was BBC. You fluked a competition massively.
I did fluke it massively because I got a new lens and I was testing it in my back garden on a bee. I thought that shot's come out.
It was a carpenter bee, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I thought, do you know what? I'll submit it to this. It was BBC The Works. That was it. BBC The Works competition, which is not one of the big competitions, but it's big
enough to get into a museum, though, weren't it?
Yeah, it's still there now. It's still there now. And I thought that'll do, and I'll put it up. And I forgot about it. I got an email about 6 months later saying, "Oh, you're a runner-up in this competition." And I was like, "Fucking hell, really? Fantastic!" They sent me the magazine and a little certificate, and then they sent me my photo framed, and then it's also in the gallery as well.
You come on our reptile podcast, and Hoss, unfortunately, didn't get to say a word, and we literally didn't talk about reptiles. We just spoke about wildlife photography.
That was it for like 2 hours. That was good. That I really enjoyed that night, and then we became mates since. And I think it was only about 2
how
weeks
me and you met,
up.
wasn't it, Corey? We met through photography. I think.
Yeah, well, we
it was.
met because
it was.
You were getting hammered on a hedgehog photo.
Yeah, that's how we met. Literally, we met. Yeah,
I sent you a friend request on that.
I was getting absolutely wrecked. I can't even remember what the hedgehog photo was now, but
it was at the free together at the
that was
rescue.
It. Yeah, that was it.
Funny.
Yeah, it was
funny stories,
and that's how it all started.
It was only about 2 weeks after that where you came up and we went out and photographed the short-eared owls and stuff. And I remember the excitement because when you said about the otters when they were diving, you were trying to make tracks. I was sat watching these short-eared owls like dip between a hedge, and then I remember scurrying forward to the next spot. And I was like, oh, where has it gone? And I looked behind me, and you're sat with this other photographer, and the short-eared owl just flew directly in front of you. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, I've gone for all that effort to get to this field over here. Turned around and Mike's up that photo. Did you come away with some good photos that day?
I did, yeah. Got some lovely photos, yeah.
I didn't come away with any.
But do you know what? Obviously, I did the Iceland trip, which honestly, that is just absolutely mind blowing. To get that close with wild Arctic foxes. I mean, at times I had to just tell myself, put your camera down, Mike, because you concentrate, as you know, you're concentrating to try and get the right composition. You concentrate on what settings you're using and trying to work with the animal as well. And I just had to go, do you know what, Mike? You're in like a real remote part of Iceland here.
Just enjoy the moment.
Where barely anybody's been before.
Just watch. There's not many people that have seen blue Arctic foxes. Not even Icelandic people haven't seen them. And so just put your camera down and just enjoy it and remember it because, we don't know whether it's ever going to happen again. So, that's another thing I'd say, people doing wildlife photography, get some shots, but also enjoy the moment. Just watch. I love watching sort of like the way that animals act and
animal behaviour is so fascinating.
Yeah, it's incredible. And down the Hyde, recently the buzzards are mating, and I was in there for one morning, and it flew into it flew into one of the perches, then it flew up the tree. I thought it was the male at first, but it clearly wasn't, because then the male come flying in and copulated with the female, and then I got some amazing shots, and then come home and Chris went, oh, I've got to go down there. And literally they mated on the post 4 or 5 meters in front of him.
Yeah, I saw that.
He had a 600 mil and he couldn't fit 2 birds in. But yeah, it was just amazing to see, again, taking the moment, because you don't know how special it is and if you'll ever see it again.
It's heartbreaking that you photographed a buzzard getting more action in 5 minutes than I have in 6 months.
Has he been married 20 odd years, mate?
But I thought it would get better. I've spent all that money on a wedding and a ring and wifed her up. It should be. I'm looking forward to it. What's your best moment, Dan? I don't think I've ever asked you this before.
It's such a tough one. It is a really, really tough one.
Photographing hedgehogs in a rescue.
Do you know what? No, I'll tell you what is my best moment, and it's not even wildlife related. It's actually a landscape moment that I never planned, and it kind of it was one of those weird right place, right time moments, and it was the Northern Lights last March it was.
That was a great photo, to be fair. That was a really good photo.
So many people have said to me, oh, I bet you put meticulous planning behind that and, weeks and weeks of it. And I was just like, no, I'll be quite frank. I never planned it. It was a complete fluke.
It was like the one I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to photograph the landscape outside of my cottage in Scotland in February. And I'm editing the photos. I'm thinking, what's that? And I kind of like zoomed in. I was like, fucking hell, that's Northern Lights. And
that's what happened to us. We'd gone out to photograph the stars at Sycamore Gap, do star trails and all that fancy shit. I think it was a 24 to 70 mil Nikon on loan. So I was like, well, I've got it. I might as well use it. And we were stood there and I was like, oh, there's a bit of green in the sky. And I thought nothing of it because greens, light pollution can come through as greens sometimes, can't it? I mean, you'll know that, Corey, from landscape stuff. And I was just like, oh, I thought nothing of it. And then it got stronger and stronger. I was like, hang on a second. I think this is the Northern Lights. And then, it just exploded. You had the light pillars and stuff. And
you exploded, though.
Both, mate. I was an absolute
You produced millions of little Dans.
I was a blubbering wreck, I was, when I saw all that happening. I was a mess.
But couldn't imagine you crying. I don't think you've cried so much since you got appointed to Gryffindor.
No. I mean, no, because it's the best house, isn't it? I mean, come on. Come on.
I've got a question, Dan. How did you manage to convince that Sorting Hat not to put you in Slytherin?
Why? Because I'm a raging bellend.
Yeah.
It's just one of the many tricks that I've got, man. One of the many tricks.
I remember the first time I met Dan, he was on his way, and I hadn't met him before. And Chris went, as soon as you see Mike, he just looks like a little Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw him, I went, bloody hell, he's Harry Potter. It's Harry Potter.
I remember Chris sharing like an Instagram story. And it was, these are photographers that I find inspirational. And he introduced me as Dan, aka Harry Potter. And I was just like, oh, that's great. In fact, was it only the second time we met, Corey?
It was the first time we met.
It was the first time we met at the Long-Eared House. You took a selfie and posted it on Facebook saying,
I can't believe I've just met Harry Potter.
Can't believe I've just met Harry Potter.
I put, I'm fucking shaking. I've just met Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's what you put.
Because I'm a massive Harry Potter fan. So a lot of people on Facebook knew that. Let me see if I can. There we go. Can't believe I've just met Harry Potter. Fucking shaking. The best thing is
now you're doing a podcast with him.
You've got the biggest bloody nip-ons ever in that photo as well.
Hey, mate, it was cold.
I'm going to change that to our profile picture on Instagram.
Are you really? Go on.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Oh, that's funny.
The one thing I just wanted to mention as well, because I haven't really mentioned it yet, was obviously after I'd had that breakdown with regards to wildlife photography, that is how I got into wildlife photography. So I'd actually bought a Nikon D3400 with a 70 to 300, was it? 70 to 300 mil lens for my wife, because she said she was going to take some photos when we was down in Cornwall the year before and she wanted to get into photography. And it was actually my wife who turned around to me and said, Mike, you love wildlife. You're always out with your binoculars. Why you signed off work for 3 months, you're receiving counselling, why don't you use this time to go out with a camera and try and document some stuff? And that was, without a shadow of a doubt, the best therapy I have ever received and still do. You know,
it's brilliant. Just that walk out in the morning and stuff like that, it's just a breath of fresh air.
Feel amazing after. And if I haven't been out with my camera, it's a bit like my security blanket now, if I'm honest with you. My wife knows that. If I haven't been out, she'll go, do you want to go out and take your camera out for a bit? And she knows I'll come back a different person when I've done that. That is a massive, massive, part of my life now. And hence why I do it so much, probably.
Yeah, the thing is that you need it, and I mean,
I can tell massively. It just in myself when I've not been out with the camera enough.
I start shaking. I'm sat there just getting bored. Do you like when you're on the phone with somebody, you start going around the house and just picking up random stuff while you're on the phone with them and just like moving something from. I like just at home, like I'm not on the phone. I just start do it. I dug up the full garden the other day because I just hadn't been out and I was just itching to do something. So I fucking dug up half the garden and put a pond in. Like just that random. But then like I went out.
A game changer for your macro photography, mate. When I put pond in lockdown. I was getting damselflies come down, things like that. First thing in the morning, damselflies, mate. A macro is absolutely bang on. It's brilliant.
My local park, because it's got a huge lake in it, we'll go for a walk around, and we had a look earlier on, but it's a bit too early in the year. Bloody hell, we'll see thousands in a day. I think it's beautiful. That's the one thing I'm so excited to take some photos of.
Yeah. First thing in the morning, though, mate, you got to get them when they're cold, because then they actually hide from you, even though the stem of the piece of grass is literally 2 millimeters wide and you can see them either side. They actually try and hide. So as you come round, they move round the grass.
They're not the smartest of animals, insects, are they?
It's like a little kid. If I close my eyes, you can't see me. It's exactly the same.
I was photographing a species of running spider earlier on, and I picked up a leaf that it was on. It was just on a dead leaf on the floor because I was kind of rummaging through and I could see it. And every time I picked up the leaf, it'd run to the other side. You can't see me, so I'd turn the leaf over and it'd run back to the other side. So I ended up just holding it up in the air and trying to photograph it from underneath, which was a bit of a disaster. But yeah, insects and invertebrates, they're beautiful subjects. I was saying too, the reason why I love photographing them is just getting proper up close and seeing all them disgusting details.
Like dinosaurs, aren't they? They're like something, aliens. It's amazing.
It's weird that you say that because I sent a photo to my mate Luke the other day of a butterfly. And I don't want a butterfly. So we've got a praying mantis, or Susie's got a praying mantis. And his response was, they are aliens, I swear. That's why I've just got a load of jumping spiders and stuff as well, just so I can do a little bit at home.
Yeah, I mean, jumping spiders are awesome because even when it's raining and horrible outside, you can literally just set up a little studio inside and get some nice shots of them. They're so cool as well.
Yeah, we've got four. We've got two regal jumping spiders and two widow jumping spiders, and one of my male widows, he is the most curious little spider ever. I'll open the enclosure, he's like straight away bouncing out, like getting onto my hand and stuff like that. He's like, yeah, I'll take some photos, I don't mind. But then the
They're weird,
female, she runs away.
they're like little cats, aren't they? The way that they'll play with you and jump on your hands and stuff.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
brilliant. I mean, they're all quite small at the minute. So my male regal, he's all right. Once he gets out and he realizes that I'm not going to eat him, he's quite happy. But the female, she won't even come out. She's just like, nope. She's got to the point now where she's made a hammock inside of a plant that I've got in there. So I'll just leave her to it. Just wait until she gets a bit bigger. And but the mantis, bloody hell, he'll come out all day long and play. He's like, he's waving at my finger for me to pick him up with my finger and stuff like that. It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah. If you got yourself a little paintbrush, mate, that's the best thing to use with insects or spiders, just to coax them. If you want to move them, just use.
Yeah. I've got a little pencil with I got this years ago, like a weird rubbery end to it, and it's quite soft and gentle. Do you know, like the meshy kind of ends?
Yeah.
It's real gentle. But I mean, with a mantis, I don't even have to do that. I open the enclosure and she climbs straight to the top of it and out, and I'm like, cool. Thanks for cooperating.
Happy days.
Did you keep any exotics anymore, Mike?
No, nothing anymore. Like I say, I used to keep and breed carpet pythons was my thing for about 30 years, but now for me, it's just, I mean, reptile photography I absolutely love, but out and about, I really would love to go to sort of like Thailand and do pit vipers and stuff like that. I absolutely love that type of photography. Obviously, you've seen sort of like the adder stuff that we do. But yeah, I'd love to go abroad and photograph some. I mean, some of these venomous snakes that are out there are just absolutely stunning. Eyelash vipers. I do like the vipers, if I'm honest with you. I like the colours,
vipers and stuff as well. Just while you're on the topic of reptile photography, probably actually the best moment of that's happened to me as a wildlife photographer is a couple of days ago. I was photographing the adders at the local patch. We had a really good morning. I think we counted about 15 of them. And I noticed there was like this little mound of moss and there was two common lizards basking on it. And I had my macro lens on still, thought I'll test my luck. And I got to about 2 inches away from this common lizard. And it was like, it must have seen its reflection in my lens, but it was like it was trying to either, I don't know if it was trying to do like a mating display or something like that. But I spent about 10 minutes and it just did not move. And it was just like so curious. And obviously, you'll know getting close to a common lizard is not an easy task at all. And I mean, there's a photo of me just laid out on the floor, all spread out, and you can just see this little speck at the end of my lens of this little common lizard. And I remember standing up and turning to my mate Joe and thinking that is the best thing that's ever happened to me as a wildlife photographer, getting close to a common lizard, and it just did not care. And I even stood up and moved out the way, and it just still stayed there, basking on the rock.
Yeah, sometimes I think they just choose to freeze, don't they? Do you remember Anton Lee? Do you know?
Yes. Yeah, I was good mates with him.
Yeah,
no, I'm not familiar.
I think he sold his gear.
He sold a lot. I think he just had enough.
It's a shame because he's such a good photographer. But I remember him going to a location that we was talking about for adder photography, and there was a common lizard there, and he jumped onto his hand, and then he literally stroked it, and it went to sleep on his hand, and he literally put that. He put a video up and put that song, I've got a friend, you've got a friend in me. And it just literally closes its eyes and just goes to sleep on his hand. It's just, yeah.
It's moments like that are brilliant, especially when it comes to reptiles and stuff like that. Because, I mean, like a couple of weeks ago with an adder, I had the experience where it just didn't really bother. Obviously, I photographed 2 adders recently and they've puffed and slithered off and that, which is fair enough. Obviously, I'm not going to force them to come out. But this one adder, he was just sat there and he just didn't care. And he showed a bit of curiosity every now and again. He kind of lifted his head up a little bit and looked towards me, and then he kind of just slumped back down. And it was fairly early on in the morning, so he might have not fully warmed up yet, but he didn't show any signs of being too bothered by me. I managed to be able to move about and get some good shots of him.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you this as well. Obviously, just be careful when you're photographing adders if you're listening to this, because we were photographing them the other day. My friend, she was laid on the floor next to me, and we were photographing this one, and she didn't realise how close her hand was to an adder that was tucked into the bush underneath her. She had no idea it was there, and she got a bite, and she only got out of hospital this morning.
Oh, did she get
Molly.
Wow.
Yeah, she took a nasty bite, and I think she reacted quite badly because she's allergic. She found out she was allergic to
I
it.
saw some pictures of her in hospital. I didn't know why though, but
Yeah, I had a bite. It was not. It wasn't down to. It wasn't. I mean, it's always going to be our fault if you get bitten by something because
of
you're not
course, yeah.
careful. But
And
there
it's
was no.
unusual that is because usually they turn and literally they'll go straight back into the hibernacular. So
Yeah,
you never get to, you never really get tagged. You've literally usually got to either try and pick one up or put your hand literally on them for them to bite. They're really shy creatures.
she must have had a hand about. Obviously, we didn't realize about an inch away from where it was kind of tucked in. It was only a little adder as well. It was tiny. It looked like it was a hatchling. Obviously, I know it's the wrong time of year for it. It was small and
A yearling.
yeah, and she was like, "Ow!" And I was like, "What's the matter?" And she looked at her finger, and you could see the venom on her finger where it come out, and then we just saw the back end of this little ladder just disappear. And I thought, bloody hell, that's
Right.
obviously again, adders get a lot of bad press in the paper for just going out and biting people. That is just like obviously Mike, and that obviously I don't think you photograph now. That is a rarity. That is something I've photographed adders for 2 years now and never experienced anything like that. You I mean, some of the photos you've got, you've been up close and personal with them. You never get adders are such a normally gentle.
You've just got to be really, really careful with them. Obviously, they've got a very small window to breed. Their habitat is restricted massively. So, we've got to do everything we can to try and help them. What we don't want to be doing is literally flooding these sites with shitloads of photographers, all trying to get up close and personal. I would always recommend using a long lens and doing it from a distance. And give them their space. As soon as they lift their head up, that is a sign that they are stressed and they're on.
Yeah, they point their head up kind of vertically, don't they?
That's the time to back off and back away from them. Yeah, but
it all goes back to respect.
Respect.
Things are going to happen if you're going to pick up an adder and wrangle it around the head and stuff like that. Unless you're a professional that's milking it for scientific reasons or whatever, or you're
or they're collecting data, or some adders need to be moved as well. If they're doing controlled burning in certain locations, which I've heard of in the past, then obviously a team usually goes in and relocates them. But if you want to take some photos of reptiles, get in touch with your local amphibian and reptile group, the ARG, and if they're doing any sort of like anything that's sort of like involving going into the wild and hands-on, you can go along and photograph them there, and
that way it's done safely and with respect
safely and
as well.
Yeah, and it's not like you're going into their habitat and disturbing them for no reason. They're being disturbed for a reason. So yeah, Craig Strawbridge, who's another fantastic photographer, he does loads of work with adders. He's got some amazing photos. He's got quite a lot of sites all over the country, but he does a lot of his work up Northumberland. But yeah, he's constantly sort of like trying to, and he goes about things the right way. He doesn't fire into people in a negative way. He just tries to educate people on how to act around adders. And
people are more likely to listen to you when you approach them that way.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we got.
Go on.
Sorry, I was about to say we got off massively off topic there, didn't we? It happens. It's good. It's good. It happens. So I mean, we've had a really good chat. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Mike, before we kind of wrap things up?
The important thing that I just wanted to mention as well was like the stigma that's attached to mental health and how we've got to get rid of that stigma. It's why a lot of people don't talk about it. I saw a post of a good friend of mine. It's actually a few months ago. He broke his leg and he was in hospital with a picture of his X-ray with a broken leg. And he was like, "Oh, look what I've done, but I'm in hospital getting mended," and everybody was positive about it. And I thought, I wonder if somebody had a wobble of a weekend and was not feeling quite right mentally, would they take a picture as they're walking into their therapist or their counsellors, saying, "I've had a wobble the weekend, but it's okay. I'm being fixed."
They'd probably get plastered straight away, like you're an attention seeker or something like that.
They wouldn't, but it's exactly the same. Your mind is just like a bone. It can break every now and then and it needs fixing. So there's no difference between the two. But the stigma between mental health and you breaking your leg in football is so far apart that people will confidently post pictures of themselves with broken bones in hospital. They'd never do that. And that's what we've got to try and encourage, talking about, look, I've been really struggling over the last 6 months, but I'm now sorted. I'm going, I'm receiving counselling, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm aware of it. We've got to start being more positive in that way. And that's why, you'll be surprised now you've spoken about these things on this podcast, the amount of people that come up to you after and go, oh, I've been struggling, I've been through this and I've that. And it's brilliant. I worked in the construction industry and I still do a fair bit, but you got sites with 100 guys on, nobody can show emotion on site. It's a male dominated industry. And just opening up in the breakfast, when we're having breakfast in front of sort of like 50 guys and sort of like getting people to talk about it, it's amazing the impact. Once one person opens up, how other people will open up as well. And,
domino effects.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a good thing. Things are happening. Unfortunately, big companies give the perception that they're actually worried about the people that work for them. They're actually not. It's about the financial side of things.
Yeah.
It costs the economy billions. So that's why big corporate companies are doing loads about mental health, because obviously the quicker you can help somebody, the quicker they can get back to work. But it's a beautiful byproduct of that is that people are getting, the recognition and help and certain things are being put in place in workplaces where you can get counselling. I wouldn't have got counselling through the NHS. I'd have been waiting months. Luckily, the company I worked for at the time was fantastic, and they got me the help. And literally within 2 weeks, I was booked in and had a course of counselling.
The difference, I think, obviously, you can go out and put the effort in yourself. And sorry, I'm just going to turn my TV down because Newcastle have just scored. You can go out and do these things for yourself, and we all know how much of a struggle it is getting through the NHS stuff like that. Because I was through that, I was waiting about a year. I put a request in 6 months ago for it, and not just for myself, but as a couple for me and Susie as well to chat about stuff. And I've still not had anything back. It's ridiculous. But when you work for a company and I think there's kind of good people around you and stuff like that support alone, whether or not you get the counselling, but the company showing that they can support you, I think that's a bit of an uplift on its own.
Yeah, definitely talking. If you can find someone you feel comfortable enough to talk to, and a face-to-face talk is much better. Like I say, I'm lucky with my wife. I can open up to, and I've got some amazing friends around me who I can. Chris, obviously, the most of the time, because if we're out doing wildlife photography, we've got a lot of time together. So that's really, really useful for me.
It's good to have that, and I don't really have that with friends. Obviously, me and Rob have a weird friendship, but we're not we do chat about some stuff. So, like, Rob got some awful news yesterday, and the day before yesterday, and I think he must have messaged me pretty much straight away to kind of share that with me. And in that sort of sense, we do chat about little things, but we also have that kind of relationship where we just have a lot of banter and a lot of laugh with each other. And I think that's like a small subtle way of doing it, which I think it helps. We go out and we have a good laugh, and I've got one of my best man at my wedding, Joe, and stuff like that. He's the same, but he's very open about his feelings, and I don't really chat much back to him, but the fact that he shares all that with me, again, makes me feel good that he trusts me to do that. And I'm seeing it a lot more often compared to like 3 or 4 years ago when it was pretty much unheard of for any of our friends sitting and have them sort of chats with each other.
Yeah. You're only young. You got plenty of time yet, mate. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. My body's telling me otherwise.
No
I'm
way.
right now, and I'm thinking, I'm shattered.
You'll be running up them hills, no problem.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing I think I need to work on this year. I think if I'm physically fit, being physically fit will also help make you mentally fit as well. And the one thing I am not is physically fit. I go up the stairs and my eyes start flashing and I can feel my heart beating through the chest.
I mean, but Corey, you've got the appearance of a long distance runner.
He has, yeah.
I've never done that. The only sports I've ever done is rugby. I was a rugby player, and I used to do cross country in school. But yeah, people think because I'm tall and stocky, like not stocky, but tall and slender, I'm full of cardio and I can do this. I'm like, no, I can't. I'm getting a bit of a podge on me. I'm looking down at my belly now, and it's starting to like pour over my.
Let's change the subject very, very quickly.
Okay, so before we do wrap up, Dan, it's your turn.
Oh, the question.
Yes.
The question,
because it's Mike, I'm expecting the best answer we've had yet. You are such a deep and philosophical person.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So
I'd be gutted if we just get the same as we do all the time.
Yeah. So if you've listened to the episodes in the past, Mike, you know I always like to finish with a question. And I think you've touched on kind of what it means to you, but we're going to stick with consistency because everybody loves it. So, Mike, what does wildlife photography mean to you?
Well, everything it means to me because of what it's done for me from a mental health point of view. It's pulled me out of a horrible place, when I was at my very, very lowest. And from being at the lowest, I think it's brought me into sort of like probably one of the best places I've ever been. It's really, really hard to describe the feeling that you get when you've been waiting there, no matter how long. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 10 hours. And what you've been waiting for comes into shot and you get that shot. The feeling is, it's too hard to explain to anybody else. The only way I can describe it to people who don't take photography but do fishing is when they're sat in nature with a rod, looking at either the end of the rod and the float, and it's all very, very peaceful. And then all of a sudden, the float goes or the rod rips round and you've got a big fish on and all the adrenaline kicks in. That's the only thing I can think of similar to the feeling that I get when I go out into nature. And do you know what? It's not just about that feeling and taking a photo. Just going out into nature is absolutely incredible and brilliant for you. But yeah, there's no beating it when you look at the back of your screen and you go, oh my God, I've nailed it. It's the best feeling in the world ever.
As a keen fisherman, I can fully relate to that because obviously if I go out for like 40, like next month, I'm going away for my stag weekend, fishing for the weekend, and there is no better sound than your bite alarm screaming. Doesn't matter if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, in the afternoon or whatever, that sound for me. And then I went pike fishing a couple of months ago and I'd done the same location for 6 days in a row and got nothing. And on the last day, hearing my bite alarm, watching my float go away, and then landing my personal best fish was the best moment in my life. So yeah, that's a very good way to compare it.
Yeah, and a beautiful answer as well. But I think we say this all the time, don't we, Corey? I think we'll always get great answers to
it's a good question because every answer is always different. That's what I like about it. You did good. Yeah. I think that's one of the bright ideas that you've had, Dan. It was a good idea.
It is good. Because it could be anything, and it could be meeting the people that you meet through it. There's so many different answers that wildlife photography brings to people, But for me personally, it's that. Yeah, I love it. Just the fact that it's dragged me from such a low place to a high place. Yeah. It's nice to be able to do something that I feel like I'm okay at, if you know.
You're fantastic at it. Like I say, I'm chatting to you. You're definitely one of the best wildlife photographers I know.
100%.
That's way too kind of you to say that. There is
you love it there, don't you? You got the biggest stalk on ever.
You never think that yours is as good as other people's, though, do you?
You're always going to be more critical of your own work than others are.
Yeah.
It's just nature.
Yeah.
Well, so we've been chatting for some time now, and I think like we've kind of hit the topic as well massively, and it's been very good. So thank you very much for coming on, Mike.
No, thank you for having me on.
This is you returning the favour for me coming onto your podcast.
It's a refreshing change, I tell you. It's bizarre, like sitting the other side of the screen answering questions.
Well, I can tell that you've done it before because you've definitely taken charge of a lot of stuff, which is really good.
99 episodes we did. Never got to 100, but we did 99 episodes.
We'll have to try and get you that 100th episode, and we'll definitely have to all try and get out with the cameras at some point as well.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll get something planned. I'll come down to you or whatever. We'll do something. I know we always say that, but
obviously the holiday it's not commercial, but we'll get you down at some point. There's lots of really, really really exciting things that's happening down there at the moment.
It'd be fantastic. I see the hard work that you're putting. I'd love to go down just so I can not benefit, but just see how much kind of work that you've put into it and watch it all pay off, and that'd be the good side of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, definitely. I think I said that after the wedding, when I've got a bit of holiday, I'll try and get down to your end for a couple of days or something like that, and see a few friends and stuff. So yeah, it'd be good to do that.
Yeah, fantastic.
Well, yeah, thank you for chatting to us.
Thank you for having me on.
If you just hang about in the background 5-10 minutes while me and Dan quickly wrap up, and then we'll check in before we all log off.
No problem.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
you
Mike.
very much. That was a good episode, that one, it done.
It was
Again, I think I say that every single week.
We do, but that's just because they are great episodes. But I think this one was particularly...
It'll hit the spot for a lot of people, won't it?
Yeah, it'll certainly hit the spot, and it just goes back to, the chat we had with Sophie Bestwick as well. About that video that she filmed of Richard. It hit the spot with so many people as well. So
yeah, and that's what obviously we kind of briefly chat about this topic in the podcast, but to have a full episode kind of dedicated to it, a really long chat with somebody that's very knowledgeable on it and very open about their struggles and whatnot. Yeah, it was quite good.
It was.
Look forward to releasing this one. This will be, if you listen to this, it'll be 1st of May, I think it is.
Yes, it
we'll
is.
be popping this one out. So, obviously,
Happy May Day.
Mike will probably help us with our efforts to raise some money for our climb, which will be some point in June. We haven't decided the date yet. Sometime in June, I think we're up to. I'm gonna have a quick look actually. Bear with me 1 second.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely massively looking forward to releasing this one.
Yeah,
it's like we've always said, if we can, if one episode helps one person, then I feel like that's a job well done for me.
Yeah, and we might get a few people reaching out to us, or might get a few people sharing the stories and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Right, before we finish then, I would like to choose our photo of the week.
Go for it, mate.
Let me have a quick look. I haven't actually had a look today.
I'm
trying to find which Instagram account to look onto. I've just changed the profile pictures.
Oh yeah, you have. Yeah, that's just gone through on mine as well.
The photo of the week for me is going to go to this brilliant photo. Corey HM Wildlife.
Oh, of course. Funny, who's that muppet?
No.
I don't know.
No. There's so many good ones to choose from. Oh, that's a good one. There's a lot of good photos.
Phelps Photography X.
You don't ever use the hashtag, or you don't tag us in it, so we can't choose you. You've got to.
I've got a contender for mine.
Well, you chose last week. Oh, here we go. Only because it was a similar subject to me. Max Wildlife photo with his macro shots of the running crab spider, which I photographed the exact same species today. He's done it better than me, so that's my photo of the week.
Well done, Max.
Who's your contender? Go on then.
I was going to go Simon's badger, to be honest.
I nearly chose that one, but we choose Simon all the time.
We do.
Yeah. Mike, start using hashtag WildTalk photo of the
photo of the week.
Hashtag WildTalk POTW in all your photos, and then we'll start choosing you, because you definitely get a few winners. I haven't done a species of the week this week.
You haven't, but it's like a special episode, isn't it? So it's all right.
Yeah, my species of the week is going to be a dog. Man's best friend. We saw loads of cute dogs today. That's it.
Beautiful. Lovely. Well,
yeah. Anything from you?
No, nothing from me.
Never is.
Well, yeah, because we do the whole catch-up thing at the beginning of the episode. At the end of the episode, there's nothing left to talk about.
No, our throat's pretty knackered as well, and the second half kicks off in 4 minutes. I want to be there for that.
Lovely. Right.
Cool. We'll finish things off then.
I will do. So, as always, guys, a massive thank you for listening. This has been the WildTalk podcast, the mental health special, with me, Dan, Corey, and our amazing guest, Mike Phelps. So, yeah, until next time, guys. Catch you all in a bit.
Bye.